I'm Baitere, and today we are going to have a book review. So, today we are going to review the book The Taster. This is a story about a taster who was the taster of Hitler with a couple of other women. So, before we start with the review, I thought it would be fun to divide this in three parts. So, first, we're going to do a wine test, a German wine test, because we are talking about the German book. The book was written in Italy, but the story about it's in German, so this is fun. The second, I'm going to talk to you about the review we did in Gastronomadas, the food magazine I'm working in. And in the last part, I'm going to talk about my opinion about this book. I'm going to talk you all about it. So if you don't want spoilers, you may skip that part. But for me, I love the reviews that tell you everything. And I don't mind knowing everything because I know what's going to happen, but I don't know all the details, like in some movies. So I prefer that. I want to know if the book's really worth it. So let's start. For today, I got this wine. I have to say I'm a victim of marketing. When I see a really lovely bottle, that's the first thing I go for. So this is a lion, as you can see, painted with some beautiful colors, a little golden and green. Green label Riesling, Deinhard. Riesling is king. This medium sweet Riesling from the Mosel Valley in Germany has fresh citrus and green apple notes. With its versatile fruitiness and refreshing acidity, it pairs perfectly with shellfish, seafood, and spicy foods. Bottler Deinhard KG, Koblenz, Germany. Bottled in Wiesbaden. So yeah, that looks very nice. So let's try it. I thought the German wine was going to be so expensive because Germany is so far from Canada, but it was a very nice surprise to me that was just $11 in a CBO. So I guess if you are a student or you're trying to save money, you could try some German wine. That's very nice. So let's see if it's as good as the price. So a little tip. If you are going to take some wine, you can hold it from here, or you can hold it from here, but I don't recommend you to hold it like here because some celebrities do that. But if you do this, you make the wine get hotter, and we don't want that because you lose some of the better taste of the wine. So let's see. It looks not very dense. If a wine is dense, usually it has a lot of alcohol in it, but this one looks very light. So here's the wine, as you can see it. It's very clear. It's like a very pale yellow. It smells like green grapes, a little bit of plum maybe, and some flowers, like spring flowers. It has some bubbles, and I don't know, I feel a little bit of bananas in there too. So let's try it. Well, this one is not sweet, just a little bit, but not in the sweeter side. It's crisp, like crisp green apples. Yeah, the thing I can taste more in here is green apples. And this is nice. I would pair it with some seafood or a salad, but not as an aperitif because it's not so sweet. So yeah, I would give it a 7.5 maybe. It's not my favorite, but it's pretty good for the price. So now I'm going to talk to you about the review we made in the magazine. So, The Taster, a historical novel inspired by the Führer taster Margot Wolk. Author Rosella Postorino. She was an Italian girl. Thought the history is about German. Original publication date January 11, 2018, so it's not so far from nowadays. Original title Le Assagitriaci, it's in Italian. Editorial Carras, and the story about this book. When something as vital as eating is alive or dead, life begins to have another meaning. Or does it lose meaning? This and many other everyday life situations are affected when you work for one of the most remembered genocide in modern history, Adolf Hitler. Rosa Sauer, the protagonist of this book, life was ordinary. She had a good job, a husband, and a whole life ahead of her. However, at the outbreak of the war, her life is forced to have a radical change to survive. When Allied bombardments fell on Berlin, a large number of Germans moved into the mountains, less populated places hoping to get away from the red dots of the war. Among them was Rosa, a German woman married to one of the many men who participated in the war against Russia. After living significant losses such as that of her mother, her home, and all her known environment, Rosa is forced to take refuge in the house of her in-laws. But the peace did not last long, as she was selected to be one of Hitler's tasters. That's right, not even the Germans were safe. His task was to taste together with other women the delicacies that were served to the great general. A strange job, since instead of starving, they could die from an act as natural as eating. Being held captive under the SS, the tasters strengthened a solidarity group that was strengthened by all kinds of experience under the Nazi rule, from fanatism to witchcraft and superstition. The war pushed the characters to the limit. Robberies, deceptions, betrayals, and hidden plans occur inside the barracks, even in an environment as familiar as a well-served table. The conclusion of this book. A novel that transports us to the time of the Second World War from a little-told perspective. A work that seems fictitious was really an activity full of stress and suffer the fear of being able to die in any bite. The story of a young woman who loses everything she knows because of the war and who, to survive, must do things she never thought of. In a sense, she must give up the person she was earlier. So yeah, now my opinion. If you don't like spoilers, you can skip this part, but I'm going to tell you all about the story about it. So first, we have Rosa. Rosa means rose in Spanish, by the way. Rosa lives in Berlin, and she is a normal person. She is a secretary, and she works with a businessman. His name is Gregor, and one day she asked her in a date, and they fell in love, and later they married. So she was a happy, normal person, a normal German in that part of history. She had a job, she had a husband, she had a kind of good life. But then the war started, and a lot of bad things started to happen. In the beginning, her father died, and she had a brother, and he also passed away. And she was with her mother. They were in an apartment, and when the bombs started to fall over Berlin, they and also all the people who lived in the same building, they got safe in the basement. And it was a very weird situation, because imagine you are in a basement, hear the bombs with a lot of people crying, a lot of stress in the environment. And one day a bomb was too near of them, and Rosa's mother passed away. So she was all alone. Her husband went to war, so he told her to go to the mountains with her in-laws. And she accepted because she had no other option. She had no job, no place, no family. So she went there, and there she met Herta and her husband. And it was a very weird relationship, because they were kind to each other, but Rosa reminded them her son in the war, and then reminded her that, yeah, his husband was in the war, so was like uncomfortable, but they were like well together. And one day she receives a notice that she was selected to be one Hitler's taster, and she couldn't say no because it was not a petition, it was an obligation with the country. So she said, oh my god, I need to go. And the next day one bus arrived to, it was a little farm, arrived there and took Rosa to a little school that was like improved to be kind of a room where the tasters could be. And in the bus she saw a lot of women. She was the only one who was not living there for a long time. She was a new girl, and all the other people kind of met each other because they all lived there for a long time. And before they start to eat the food, they had a medical exam, and some blood was took from them, and she was very afraid of that because she thought in the war, in all the passed away she had seen, and she was staring at another woman. And when that finished, that woman followed her to the bathroom and started to fight with her, was screaming at her that she should be in her business, that she didn't want her to see her, that was what was happening to her, that she wanted to be alone. She was very, very rude. Her name was Alfred. Then they started to taste the Führer's food. All the day she came, the breakfast was some fruit, and I believe some cheese, I'm not sure, but I remember the fruit. And for the other part of the day, they tried different dishes. Hitler was a vegetarian, so he didn't eat meat, but the chef, his name was Krummel. He said he put some bacon in the soups, and Hitler would not notice because he was good hiding that, but he thought the general of Germany needed some protein, so that's why he did that. And everything started kind of good, so there was not a lot of trouble. They were paid because of that job, but it was a very awkward job because they could die in any moment because the food was very tasty, very elegant, but they were looking if it was poisoned. So at the beginning they were very stressed about that, but then the day passed and they get used to that, hoping they would not die. But I guess if you live in a crisis for a long time, you get used to it as a new normality. So yeah, the days start to pass, and the boss returned the women to her houses by night. And then her in-law, the father of her husband, I believe his name was Joseph, he was a gardener of a duchess, a German duchess, and I don't remember if he gets ill or Rosa, but the Duchess met Rosa in that situation, and she likes her and tries to be her friend. And Rosa feels so very out of place because the Duchess is a very elegant woman, and Rosa feels like she's nothing. And she tries to be polite, but I feel it's kind of rude because the Duchess tried to be her friend, and Rosa is like, okay, I don't like that. That was like of the first part. I didn't like Rosa. I don't really like her, but we'll see it later. So the story continues, and one day the woman gets poisoned. So the story continues, and Krummel, the chef of Hitler, one day needs some help from the people, so he asks some women to help him. And there are some fanatics that try to be so I don't know, kind of annoying and make Krumel see that they love their work, and Krumel is like, oh, just be easy with that and stuff. But Rosa, she's just friendly with him and he likes her. So one day he gives her some free milk, and the fanatics get very angry with her and says, oh, you don't have children, you should give us that milk. And she says, no, I'm not going to do that, it's my milk. But she feels like a little awkward because she really wanted to have some kids, and now she can't because her husband is in the war, and he told her by letters he's going to come in December, but she don't know if that's really going to happen because war is so bad, and she don't really know what to do in that situation. She can tell him that she's a taster of Hitler, and he can tell her a lot of the stuff that happened in the war because the military didn't let them in the letters tell a lot about the situation. They always wanted them to tell like, oh, I love this job, I love Germany and stuff. And then one day they get poisoned. Well, not poisoned, but one day they are eating like normal, and one starts to throw up, one faints, and every person in the room is very scared, and they all starts to feel so bad and ill and starts to puke, and the militaries don't know what to do, and they get away of the room, and all the women are like, oh, what's happening, we're going to die and stuff. But nothing really happens. Then like an hour later a doctor came and they were good. They were just feeling bad, but they were alive, so it was no poison. And some days passes and the Duchess becomes a little friend with Rosa. She tells Rosa to come to her castle, and they start to talk, and one day there's a party and the Duchess says, Rosa, you should come to my party, and Rosa came, and she sees a general in there. The general's name is Singler, and she's like, oh my god, I need to act like I know him because he was in the taster's room. He was looking all the details about the dishes and stuff, but being a taster of Hitler's was like a secret, so they should not say anything about it. And the general just was polite and say, oh, hi, but like he didn't know her. And the Duchess asked Rosa to sing, and she accepts because she didn't want to be rude, but she didn't was like a true friend to the Duchess. She was only doing everything the Duchess says just to, I don't know, to fit in. And the general liked that. Yeah, Rosa singing. So a couple of days passed by, and one day in the middle of the night, Rosa heard a weird sound in the window, and she went to see what was it. And she saw the general in the window, and she was terrified and returned to the bed or something like that. But the next day she was thinking, oh, I hope he comes again, maybe he wants to see me, maybe it was a dream, I don't know. But in that part the things start to get weird, because I don't know, if I see a general in my window, I would be in bed, like, hide it. No, I would not be like, oh, I want him to come. And she was married. She didn't knew if her husband was okay or not, but you don't go to see a general in the middle of the night. But she went, and she went outside of the farm, and they went to the barn and started talking, and first nothing happened, but a couple of days later they turned into lovers. I thought that was very bad of Rosa, because she was married. Even if her husband, if he passed away, she should never do that, because she was living in his husband's in-laws. But okay, as I told you, I don't like her. And his husband told her he was going to come by Christmas, but then Christmas came and and he didn't arrive, so everybody thought he passed away in the war or he was captured by Russians. And the Duchess was very nice with Rosa and tried to tell her, oh no, keep the faith and stuff, but she was like, no, I can't have faith. So she started a romance with Singler, and one day he told her like they were no poisoned the day all the ones felt ill, that it was just bad honey, that it was in bad conditions. So she told the girls, and then she was like, oh my god, I should not say that, because how would they know that I know it? And they asked her, and she said like, no, it was just a supposition, but she had an adventure with the general. And then she became friend with Alfred, the rude girl, and Lenny, another girl who, well, I feel they were no friends. They were just tolerating each other because they wanted to make alliances. But Alfred was very rude with Rosa. She always tell her she was like extra fancy and she should not do that because she was not in Berlin anymore. She was in a countryside, and she called her Berlin's girl in a rude way. And Lenny was more like a little girl, so she became friends with Rosa just because it was easy, I guess. And there were all the fanatics, like loving their job. And one day Krumel wanted some help in the kitchen, and Rosa helped him. And one day the fanatics told her, oh, you should ask for more milk to our children. And Rosa kind of accepted, but some military people saw that Rosa was stealing, and then Cromwell came and said, oh no, I give her that milk. But she told her, I saved you this time, but don't come ever to my kitchen. And Rosa felt so dirty and she didn't know what to do, so she threw away the milk. She didn't give the fanatics the milk, and that was like very awkward for me, because she should tell them like, I'm not going to help you, I'm not going to steal milk for you, that's very dangerous. But Rosa did it because she wanted to fit in, but I didn't like that too. And then she threw away the milk. She could have gave them to her in-laws or do something with that, but it was a very poor season, and she spilling the milk, I felt that was rude, because if she was going to do that, she should not steal it from the first place. So then one day a big attack happens in Hitler's bunker, and they were looking for the person who did that, and they interviewed the tasters, but there was none of them. But they found out the Duchess was the guilty person who made the attack with her husband, I guess. So they went to jail and they get executed, I believe. So there the security with the tasters were harder. So all the tasters were translated to kind of a bigger school, but they could not go away from the school only in weekends, but from Monday to Friday they should be there. And Lenny was dating a military guy, and one day he told her like, oh, let's go see each other in the night. And she accepted, but then she regretted and he violated her. So it was a big scandal, and Alfred said like, no, he can't do that to you. And she told Singler what happened, and he helped them kind of, because he took to the prison the military guy and has no represalias with Alfred, with Lenny. So Rosa thought Singler was on her side, but then she realized it like, no, he was just doing his job. And in the meanwhile, one of the girls was married, but she was dating in secret a guy, and she got pregnant, and then she didn't want everyone to know, because how could she be pregnant of her husband if he was in the war. So Alfred helped her and took her into the woods, and a person made her an abortion. And some days later, Singler told Rosa that he thought Alfred was Jewish. And Rosa said, like, oh my god, I need to tell her so she can escape. And Singler told Rosa, no, don't tell her. I'm going to help her. I'm gonna try my best to help her, but don't tell her anything. And Rosa was like, oh, I don't believe in him, but maybe he could help her. What should I do? And she don't tell Alfred nothing. But everything happened because Alfred helped the girl to have an abortion, because Alfred's dad was a doctor and he was Jewish. And then when she told about the Eleni situation, all the tasters were like they reviewed her past, and they found Alfred was not really Alfred. She was just faking her name. And the general took her, and Rosa didn't understand if she was okay or she passed away in a concentration camp or what happened. So Rosa was very angry with the general, but then the general told her, oh, the war is so bad right now, and maybe the Russians are coming soon, so I'm going to help you escape. And Rosa was very angry because she was like super friends with Alfred, even though Alfred was very rude with Rosa all the time. I didn't like that because the Duchess was very nice with Rosa, and Rosa was like, ah. And then she had a crisis when Alfred was taken, but okay. So Rosa thought she should not survive because she didn't deserve it, but the general helped her. A doctor who was working in the Hitler's bunker, he met Rosa in a place Singler told her to meet, and he took her inside of the bunker as a nurse. And they arrived to a train, and he told her like, go up, and she was like, oh my god, but this is not a person's train. Here you have all the stuff, and how can I be fitted with these boxes? And he told her, well, I help you to get here, so you decide what you do. But then a military guy entered, and Rosa was afraid, and she got into the train. And then the train started to go to Berlin, and Rosa heard there was a couple inside too with a baby. And Rosa was thinking about all the situation. She had some sandwiches to eat because her in-laws knew about the situation, that the military general Singular, well, not Singular, but they knew a military person wanted to help Rosa, and they didn't ask questions. They said like, you should survive, and they were okay with that. And she went to Berlin, and the trip was very, very hard because they didn't got a washroom, and the baby, well, his diaper's dirty, and they had to tolerate that all the journey. And Rosa was kind of nice, and she gave some of her sandwiches to the couple. But I don't know, I wouldn't have done that because you have a very little food, you have very little money, you are going homeless to another place. Even if you know that place, you don't know what you are going to do. And she was sharing her food with some people that she didn't knew. They could be very rude, they could have killed her, I don't know, for the food for the baby, I don't know. But well, she helped them. And then when they came to Berlin, they got separated, and I thought, well, this would be a very interesting chapter because we are going to see what Rosa is going to do now, because she's homeless. She had no place to go, she had so very little money, she doesn't have a job. But then they skip that chapter, and we see a lot of years later in Rosa's life. And she arrives to a house and she's talking to a woman that appears to be her husband Gregor's new wife, and it's like, what's happening? I don't understand anything. And she sees Gregor and he is very ill. I think he has cancer. And Rosa is there watching all the situation, and she is trying to be compassionate with Gregor, but Gregor says like, oh, what you came? You only came to say goodbye because I'm going to pass away and stuff. And then they start to fight because they were angry. Things didn't work out because he arrived from the war, but they didn't have the trust to say each other what really happened. She didn't tell him she was a taster of Hitler, and he didn't tell her what happened in the war because it was dangerous to reveal the information, and because they didn't want the other to know all the stuff. For example, Rosa didn't want him to know she had an adventure with a military guy. And it's hard because if she didn't have that adventure with that guy, maybe she didn't survive, I don't know, but I don't know, the stuff is very tricky. And then they kind of fight and they say things didn't work out. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the book. So it gives a lot of questions. I didn't like a lot the ending because it gets a lot of blank points, and it's like, okay, the story is kind of not finished, but okay. But the interesting part of the book is all the taster's memories, because you usually heard Jewish stories, and they are very important too. But I don't have heard a lot of books or movies that talk about the German perspective. I'm not on the military side. Like Rosa, she was just a civilian and the war was hard for her too. So I give that book a 7.5. I think it worth be reading. It's not the best story of all times, but I think it's very interesting. And the last part I didn't like, it was at the end of the book. It's a little letter from the author, and she says she heard Margot's Walk story in the newspaper and she wanted to interview her, but she passed away, and then the writer of the book, Rosella Postorino, she kind of filled the blanks and invented part of the story, so that I didn't like. So it's not like a real story. A lot of blank space were filled with imaginary stuff, but okay. So I believe it's an interesting book from the Margot Welk perspective, being a taster of Hitler. And if you read it, let me know what you think in the commentaries below. So thank you for watching my video, and see you later.